Well, welcome everyone to this session. My name is Isabella McPeak. As it was mentioned, I started with AX over 20 years ago and have been with this product and done many, many implementations. So I'm coming from the practical side of this. I want to make sure that we have just a brief introductions, then the differences in dynamics, a little bit of the architecture, and then the difference between an upgrade versus a migration. And I would like to give you some best practice advice and some things that you can take action on if you are thinking or planning an upgrade to D365 from your current AX. So as a precursor, wanted to let you know that this is not a technical presentation. This is really meant for subject matter experts, company decision makers, to give you the big picture of truly what's important and what the differences are and what to expect as part of this process, right? There's time, team, and money. And some of them I can tell you about, some of them will give you some tools to help you figure out what that might be. So for those of you who are highly technical, yes, I can do technical talk, but this is not one of them. And there are lots of YouTube videos and tech talks from Microsoft and Microsoft Learn pieces out there. When you get the copy of these slides, the presentation will include, the last page has several links to pertinent technical links. But again, today's presentation is really just high level so that as company leadership or as an AX subject matter expert, you have some expectation as to what this process looks like. And here we go. So, why would you want to upgrade to D365 other than the fact that Microsoft has discontinued AX support, right? But if your business is growing and they're, given all the supply chain things and everything that's going on in the world, businesses have to change. And again, you want to be on a platform that can change with you. So an elastic platform that accommodates that. And you want to be able to do business anywhere and open locations or have manufacturing in all around the world as needed. And so again, you need mobile, you need web-based, you need all of these tools to be able to scale up quickly. And from a hardware perspective, of course, having all your own servers and everything is always an investment. The idea with a cloud-based solution, software as a service, is you pay for subscriptions as you need them, right? You can scale up, you can scale down, basically. So just have it just right. And then again, this is also with the cloud version of D365, you do not have to do an upgrade ever again. So this is an evergreen product. That means that when Microsoft brings in updates, they are backwardly compatible, and they're also compatible with customizations that you have. So there's a new methodology of customizing AX, now D365, and the new way no longer prevents you from taking Microsoft updates. So again, this being able to get new features in without having to do a true upgrade again is really, it protects your investment, right, for the future. So this is, and here's why you can't stay on AX forever. It might work for you just fine, but it is end of life. And so you could get a new Office D365 version or something, and it will not be compatible with AX. It's older versions of SQL, the new versions aren't compatible. It's older versions of Windows servers, the new ones are not compatible, right? Microsoft may stop doing security patches for, a lot of the oldest versions. So again, and when your servers die, you may not be able to replace it with the hardware and software, right? So you have some risk factors here as this prolongs, to say, you really need to plan for this upgrade. So the good thing is that AX and D365 are quite similar, but you don't have to totally relearn it. So if you're, as a super user or a subject matter expert, are familiar with AX, then it is actually, the terminology stays the same. You still have journals, you still have number sequences, you still have postings and all of the different things that you can still personalize your screen and things of that nature. So that's all still there. So but the main difference is really, so let's just assume you've been running AX for 5, 7, 9 years or something like that. So you have a lot of data accumulated. And so there really is now, you have to make a decision at the very beginning of this process, whether you can do an upgrade versus doing a migration. And there are pros and cons of this, and it's probably the most important decision that you will make. So I want to walk you through what that looks like, what the difference is. So in an upgrade, Microsoft has provided a tool set, and that is if you're on AX 2012 R2 or R3. Then that tool set is available. If you're on anything earlier than that, so AX 2009 or AX 2012 RTM, so that's before R2, you cannot use the upgrade tool set. And the reason is that database changes are so severe. When it went to AX 2012 R2 and R3, the financial dimension structure changed. So that's why that tool set only works on the newer versions of AX 2012. The other thing is the upgrade will work if you have little to no customizations. I'd say it would be very unusual for AX clients to have little to no customizations. So really, this needs to be looked at. The amount of customizations that you have really will drive the upgrade or the migration effort, both of either way. So the difference, but the core difference is that if you do an upgrade, your entire database will be converted to finance and operations with the tool set that Microsoft provides. If we migrate, we leave a lot of the history behind. We also leave a lot of garbage data behind. So that means we're bringing in master data like, customers, vendors, items, bill of materials, open POs, open sales orders, open invoices, and starting the process from there, basically. And the historical data will stay in your AX, or you can have a separate effort to actually move historical data into a data warehouse, using various Azure tools that Microsoft provides. And we have a practice in-house as well that helps you with that. So again, looking at doing this migration is a much tighter process, but again, you don't have the history here. But it really, what you can and cannot do really depends on what you have. There are also other criteria, so as I mentioned, the version of Microsoft AX that you have determines whether you even can do an upgrade. And if you have small customizations, if you have a single ISV module, so something like a SK Global Treasury Management or Avalara Sales Tax, for example, right? Those vendors all provide upgraded versions to their ISV module for D365. If you have many different ISV modules, right, they all need to be evaluated and they all need to work together in the new version. So again, there's more work there. And if your database is small to medium, and basically in Microsoft terminology, that's less than a terabyte, right? So typically 100 megabytes up to 999 megabytes, but once it goes over a terabyte, it really is not practical. And the reason for that is when this upgrade happens, right, it needs to all conclude within one cutover weekend. And when the database is super huge, it's just from a timing perspective, there's too much data. It can't fit into a weekend, right? And so there, you really need to look at migration in that scenario. The other reason, if you can upgrade, if you're not planning any fundamental configuration changes, right? If you're happy with your configuration in AX 2012, then you're saying, all of my financial dimensions are good, all of my inventory dimensions are good. I don't need any changes to my chart of accounts. And, you don't want to change your costing method. Again, if you are using standard costs now and you want to go to FIFO, you cannot do an upgrade, right? You would migrate, we would reconfigure the system, we would re-implement using that new costing method, and then basically get all of the open transactions in with the new costing method to do that cutover. And another reason to consider a migration is if you have large amounts of customizations that is functionality that might have been done by Microsoft. I would say a prime candidate might be engineering change management is now a module in D365. That means you can version control your bill of materials or other end products, released products, with a version number, and have a controlled process for assigning those version numbers and have that workflow controlled and everything. So if you have an engineering change customization in place, or an ISV product, right, we need to pull that out, and you want to replace that with standard Microsoft functionality. Another example might be revenue recognition is now a module in D365. If in the past you had an add-on product for revenue recognition, you would probably want to pull that out and use the standard that comes out of the box. That would save you some money ongoingly. So again, that all needs to be evaluated, right? The other reason to do a migration, if you have a large number of legal entities, we have clients that have 30, 50, 100 legal entities or more, you probably can't cut them over all at the same time. That is a lot of change. So usually it's done by geographical areas. You group certain, groups of legal entities together and cut them off to minimize the risk, basically, and the timing, and also, basically be able to schedule resources for this exercise. So those are some of the reasons why you would want to migrate versus upgrade. So regardless which way you go, there is quite a bit of work to be done because, as I mentioned, the whole thing needs to be analyzed. Your subject matter experts really need to be brought into this process. There's workshops that need to happen to go through your different business processes and do a short version of modeling things. And also there's lots of new configurations to be done. So if you had upgraded 3 years ago, then the old AX and D365 were probably head-to-head pretty much the same. Now we have over 600 new features and modules released by Microsoft. So there is a lot to go through as to what's in, what's out, and the changes and additional configurations in every module, basically, that need to be set up and then tested by your subject matter experts. Integrations, if you have any third-party integrations or, shipping or things of that nature, you want to take that, obviously has to be redone. You want to look at your reporting, your Power BI, your data warehousing, as I mentioned earlier. There's other cloud considerations, basically, for environments, Power Apps, things of that nature, tool sets that are brand new that you could bring in to help out with your D365. And the licensing has to be cut over and managed. We have mock go lives, basically, that needs to be tested. This is not a one-time thing. So there's iterations of this, right? And then iterations of testing and training, basically, and then verification of the data that actually comes over. So, from a large perspective, you can see what a project plan for something like this might look like, and however deep you're currently implemented. So if you're live all the way through manufacturing, for example, then there's the number of modules and the number of legal entities will drive your effort, basically, with this. So I hope this gives you a bit of an overview as far as just the different areas where effort needs to take place. And we as a partner, we guide you through that effort, but your subject matter experts and your testing is going to be instrumental. Regardless of migration or upgrade, there is a large technical effort involved in this process. So I'd say the effort on both upgrade or migration is probably 60% technical and 40% functional. I think that's probably a good rule of thumb. So just to give you an idea as what's out there, basically. So if you haven't seen D365, I will come over here and just show you. So these are called workspaces. So when you first log in, this is all the stuff that's out there. And these are workspaces are basically areas that combine what a functional user might do in a given day. And so if I, for example, I come into credit and collections, that is a brand new module that has been pulled out of accounts receivable and has there's an entire credit hold and release system in here. And you have your aging basically of this is your live aging report basically. And again, you can sort this and see what's due. You can click through, see the individual things, and look at this and do live aging notes and everything. And this is overdue balances, and then we have just the aged balances in your 30, 60, 90 basically that runs. So just to give you an example of, if I go to the credit and collections and I go to see there's new parameters here. It's not just receivables. We have a second set of parameters. We have an entire thing of credit management here that we say, okay, if we're putting people on credit hold, at what point in time do we do this? And how do we manage credit limit changes? And what workflows do we activate with this? So this is one area. The other thing, there's some nice features that come along. So one of them is a financial period close. So for those of you who have multiple legal entities, you can actually create the task list of all of the things that need to get done to close the month end, hyperlink the options here, and then assigning who is responsible. So again, these are some things that can be done and turned on and configured that are part of this new D365 F&O. Every single module has that. And so, and there are some things that are critical. So like in master planning, for example, you would have planning optimization versus what they call master planning classic. So, and this is kind of what I'm talking about down here. So master planning classic is what you have now. If you have, manufacturing, you're going to run it overnight. Your plan probably takes about 5 or so hours to run. Planning optimization is basically MRP as a service. You can run it in the cloud, you could run it during the day, it will not impact the performance of your system, and it's going to be done in about 10 or 15 minutes. So again, lots of new parameters there, and looking at that. Microsoft has done work in the transportation management area. Do you need basic shipping or do you need transportation management? Do you need basic warehouse versus the advanced warehouse management, with mobile apps? So for example, if you had an ISV RF Smart, it needs to be determined whether you're going to keep RF Smart, which is still available for D365, or you actually use the Microsoft mobile app and use that to do all of your scanning for the various transactions in the warehouse. We have a new vendor consignment inventory dimension that's called owner. So if you have, vendor consignment inventory, this is something that needs to be configured and tested through. We have, additional workflows. There used to be about 80 workflows in AX. Now there's probably 140. So again, lots of other areas now can be workflow controlled, including critical vendor or customer changes. And so if you, change the credit limit, if you're changing the name of the vendor, if you're changing the bank account of the vendor, those are tightly controlled basically, or the terms, so that a manager can now approve those changes. I showed you just a little bit of that period end workspace, and we have year-end optimization, the credit and collections split. And so every single module kind of needs to be reviewed. We have, probably one of the biggest ones that we have is asset management, which is the maintenance module. So if you own buildings, equipment, machineries, and so on, managing the maintenance of those parts, the labor, and everything that goes into maintaining those assets. And then there's also brand new landed costs module, basically, that obviously ties into the procurement area with voyages and containers and estimated costs for duty freight and handling and things of that nature, that all ties in. So you can see there's lots of extra pieces that need to be attended to, and decisions need to be made as we go through. So I promised you to do some best practice advice, to give you some. So obviously there's a decision to be made whether migration or upgrade is right for your organization. And then I would say just a good estimate is however long it took you to implement your AX the first time around, estimate at least 50% of that time for the upgrade or migration. So if it took you a year to get AX live, then 6 months might be doable. It's still going to be tight, but again, if it took you, 2 years to go live, then it might take you a year to go through all of the iterations of this upgrade or migration. You need to have a dedicated project manager for this, and Microsoft provides a tool that in the past only developers have used, but now all the users can have access to. It's called DevOps, and that manages all the tasks and the due dates and the environments and your checklists for go live and pre-go live. So again, managing all those tasks is critical, and it is a team sport, and your project manager, your in-house project manager, is critical to success of this process. As I mentioned earlier, 60% of the migration effort is technical in nature. So, you want to have the best technical resources to support your organization in addition to your own in-house system administrator. And technically, there's a lot to learn, right? Your in-house administrator is going to have different tasks now. As far as Azure expertise is going to be critical for your in-house system administrator to manage this new platform for you. 2 to 3 mock cutovers, right? That is the best practice. I mean, we don't just do it once and say, yeah, we're good to go. That would be very unusual. So I would say as a minimum of 2, sometimes 3, as organizations, whatever their level of comfort is, right? So we are going to monitor the testing and the test cases and what has passed or not. So it'll be very clear. Yes, has the data been validated? Is everybody good to go? All the functional areas, need to give a thumbs up for it to actually go into production and go live. Yeah, so, and as I mentioned, even though your old servers and all of that is going to become obsolete, your sysadmin has to know Azure, Power BI, electronic reporting, the Power Platform, SharePoint Online, lots and lots of new things to learn as we're leaving some of these old topics behind. And then you need to decide, what to outsource and what to keep in-house. And so if we as a partner, we can do as much or as little as you want us to do. We obviously have technical expertise, we have functional expertise, we can guide you through the process. If you have fantastic in-house technical people, especially developers, just be aware it's going to take them about 6 months to learn the new way of D365 coding with extensions. So this is not an instant thing, and there's quite a bit of work to be done to migrate customization. So if you have an in-house team, fantastic. If you do not, you can outsource it and use us as your partner to help you with that. So let's see, more best practice. Yeah, subject matter experts need to be involved, right? So there will be workshops, but in between they have to write the test cases. So I would say, maybe 25% of your subject matter experts' time, whoever that core team is for that's going to be dedicated to this upgrade or migration, is probably a good guesstimate on that. And other than implementing the features that Microsoft has turned on as mandatory or that come on by default, the best practice is not to turn on a lot of other modules as part of this initial cutover. So for example, if asset management is something you want to do, don't turn it on the day of the cutover. It has its own setups and everything else, it takes quite a bit of time to tune it. So cut over without it, and then do a release 2 or 1.5 and says, okay, this is a new module. Same thing with landed cost, right? Landed cost is a brand new thing. It's not in D360, or it's not in your AX. If you want it, do the cutover first and then configure the brand new module, test that functionality, and then take it live. That is a much easier and much preferred way of doing things. And there are maybe some business process changes. So again, looking through all of those things and having your subject matter experts involved. If there are any business process changes, right, do them early on so that everything is configured according to what you want the process to be. Documenting configurations is going to be important. Again, we have a lot of clients who, buy other companies, have to set up another legal entity. You want to have a template for how to configure a brand new legal entity in this new world. So documenting the configurations is really a best practice thing. So if something changes, you look at the documentation and you can know exactly where to go. Testing and validating cannot be underestimated, right? You need to own the test scripts and have a test plan in DevOps. Usually we use a train the trainer approach where once your SMEs, your subject matter experts, are really truly the experts, the credibility of training is a lot higher from somebody that knows your business really well and knows your data super well. So that's really recommended. There are Microsoft Learn wonderful video recordings that are standard, right, out of the box, but obviously you want your people to be trained with your data and your configuration. So creating short video recordings now in Teams is really easy. Task Recorder is still there. You can use it. You cannot just create a script with Task Recorders, but you can also upload it and link it physically to a form where a new user can actually, it'll take them step by step and they'll click through the forms as they go. So this is the concept of guides and creating documents for certain areas with screenshots that are tricky to educate your users. So a lot of concepts are the same. The user interface is very much like Microsoft Office. So anybody having worked in Excel is going to be very comfortable there. The Excel imports and exports are much easier than they used to be. And so again, documentation and training docs are and a mix of them, some videos, some task recording, some documents. So because people learn in different ways and you want to get them up to speed, as quickly as possible with tools that they can rely on. We talked briefly about the reporting strategy, right, as far as what to do with historical data, what to do with Power BI. Just be aware that the Power BI designer license is not part of the D365 finance and operations license, so that is different. You're getting some Power BI embedded, which are Microsoft provided pieces, like when I just brought up before the credit and collections, you saw the little graphics and things that come up. That is considered embedded Power BI. But any outside of that, right, you need to have a reporting strategy as far as how you want to do custom reports. So the normal SSRS reports, there's still over 800 of them that are standard in the system. So your inventory valuations, your aging reports, all of those, all of those received not invoiced, though all of those reports still exist standard in the system and you can run them. But anything beyond that, you need a strategy. There's also new tools that's called electronic reports. So your customer and vendor facing documents, for example, it is a configuration tool. It's somewhat technical, but again, you can decide in-house to do that in electronic reporting, which basically means when you bring in an update for an electronic report, you don't have to take the system down to install a update, that is rolled into quote unquote code. Instead, it's a configuration. So again, strategy is important. And then the time, security, workflows, batch process, and document management has to be reconfigured. This is also the time to decide whether you're going to use SharePoint online versus keeping things in the Azure Blob or in the database. So lots of things to consider here, best practice. And so just a little bit about the process. There is an analysis, there is solution modeling and execution with iterations, and then there is validation and deployment. So the analysis, there's a small analysis and there is a more extensive analysis of this whole process. And we need to figure out, your business requirements and if are there any gaps, and then project planning, environment planning, and the biggest part of the analysis, if you have a lot of customization, that will take the longest. So that's just something to consider. And then we go into this whole redeveloping new customizations and integrations. You need to perform data cleanup, especially if you're doing an upgrade. In the migration, we leave a lot of this, that if you have 20 million inventory transactions in your database, then that's going to get left behind on a migration. But if you upgrade, you need to do data cleanup and run data cleanup processes like ASAP. That is one thing that you can do right away. I believe we have a blog post on that, on all of the different things that you need to do to clean up your database and keep it in top performing shape. As I mentioned, there's new configurations, business process changes, and then there's the validation and all of the testing that needs to happen, including performance testing. And so multiple iterations, you've got to have mock cutovers at least minimum 2 times to make this a go. So, this is just a really high level, so if it took you a year, this is a 6 months plan of, how long do these things take, and what type of workshops would we have, and, what is the process. So this is just, people are always interested. So this is a sample. This is not a live one. But again, it does take time, and the availability of your people is going to make a difference here. So if you have an audit in between, or you have other things that are happening, you're implementing other systems that are not ERP related. So let's say you switch over HR, and Microsoft has a new HR here as well. That is, where people's attention is pulled. Then, this time frame is up for discussion. So as we conclude here, I told you this was about time, team, and money. If you want us to give you a few more information about your particular needs and what size of a project yours might be, there's small, medium, large, and there are supersized projects. And we do not know you at this point in time. And so if you want it, I put out a little questionnaire. I think it's real quick. It's about 20 questions. You can click through it and just give us some quick answers, and that would help one of our account managers to start a discussion and then give you a bit more of an idea as far as what size of project it would be and how we would tackle that. So again, there is a short assessment, a short technical assessment, and then there is the full upgrade analysis. So those are some of the options as far as what's the first step that you would take once you decide this is something we need to do. And we would love to work with you to get you started, whether that be with a short technical assessment or with a full upgrade analysis. We have a team in place that does that, and as mentioned, most of us have a lot of experience in this space with AX and D365, and we look forward to working with you on this. And as promised, here are some technical links and resources for those of you who are interested in the more technical ramifications of the upgrade or migration. And thank you so much for attending.